our purposes today, I think I'd like it to be about 2/3 the background trees. So I'm pretty generous with the blending solution, and I'll take one of the larger brushes and just make sure I've got good coverage of the blending solution on there. And let's start applying color. Let's start with yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is, of course, a little bit more toward the brown, and what I'm thinking of is a bit of a fall scene. So apply a few generous drops of yellow ochre and let it move around on the tile. Now I'm going to take the cad yellow, nice light yellow, drop that in, not too much of a difference. So let's take the cad red and get that going in there, some nice bright color. Just let it run off the tile, and you can move it around until you find a design that you think is pleasing. And remember, with these inks, you can always go back in and fix things. Pretty much whatever you put over top, if I go back in with the yellow ochre, replaces what was there. And we want to have some uneven shapes, some different shapes in the trees as well. We don't want it to be, all one solid color or have it appear as stripes. We want a variation, just like you might find in nature. I'm going to take the darker green. Let's put a couple of drops of that in and see what happens. Very dark. Shows up beautifully. I'm going to go back in with a bit of the yellow and get that diluted. So I'm just going back and forth with these colors, letting them run off. I'm certainly letting them run off in mostly a vertical fashion because we're dealing with trees. And look what a nice variation we're getting in there. Okay, I think that's really quite pretty. So I'm going to just let the excess run off, and I'm almost blotting the edge on the paper towel to help it drain off of there. So there we have it. There's a nice background of trees. And once I look at this, I can see that we've almost inadvertently divided this tile in half. So let's go back in and fix that. I'm going to put I'm going to extend these trees a little bit. A little bit more color, yellow ochre, cad yellow, just bringing it down a little bit further. And letting it run off and back down. You can do a little bit of side to side to get the colors to spread out. And I'm thinking now that we've gone back in, we need a little bit more red. So I'm going back in with the cad red. So now we've got some really nice color happening. And I'm happier now that we've got a good 2/3 covered with the background trees. I'm going back in with a little bit more of the yellow, just to soften some of these reds. Okay, and we've kind of lost our green, so let's go back in with a little bit more green. And this time I'm using the lighter green. Okay. I'll get this right down in here. So you can see we can keep playing with it, that we can keep adding and taking away, and really all that's happening is that we're getting a really nice variety of shapes and colors. And, again, when I look at this, I'm pleased with having different size, shapes, and colors. So I think that's a pretty good start. I may just go in with just a little bit more yellow right in here. Make sure that we haven't divided our tile in half with those colors, that there's a nice variety. Okay. All right, now we've got a nice variety of shapes, a nice variety of colors. I'm pretty pleased with that. That's a good start. And remember that we're going to be going back into this and doing more work, but as an overall background, very pleasing. So at this point, we'll take a moment just to let that dry before we go on to the foreground.